The Cubs beat the Reds yesterday in one of the fastest games in MLB history, at least over the last decade plus. Jameson Taillon rolls against the Reds, and the Cubs gear up for what could be Kyle Hendricks' last start in a Cubs uniform at Wrigley Field. That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in that comment section. Let us know how you're feeling about Kyle Hendricks and his potential emotional send-off. But for now, here's your invitation to our show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale. You can find me on Twitter at ant_Pasquale3. A lot to get into today, but we'll start right off the bat with what should be a very emotional day at Wrigley Field today, as we might be seeing the professor's last class. Kyle Hendricks is on the mound for the Cubs today in what many expect to be his last start as a Cub at Wrigley Field. He is due to be a free agent at the end of the season. And Kyle Hendricks has even said to the media that he's felt at times this year he didn't deserve some of the opportunities that he got. And he is extremely grateful for what he has been able to receive as a member of the Cubs. Let's be honest, the start to the season was really rough for Hendricks, but he has settled in pretty nicely. After his first couple of starts, I believe his first 5 or 6 starts of the season, he gave up 4 earned runs or more in each of his starts. But then from May 23rd on, he really settled in nicely with only one pretty blow-up start mixed in there. Hendricks has been a relatively reliable pitcher for the Cubs, and he has eaten up a lot of innings. But today isn't about the seasons he's had and the ups and downs we've seen in 2024. It's about honoring one of the most instrumental pieces to the 2016 World Series championship run. He might get the start today, and he might be pitching on the mound against the Cincinnati Reds in a meaningless game at the end of September. He might be going out there with a 4-12 record with a 6.28 ERA on the season. But today's not about that. Today's about the pitcher that started Game 6 of the 2016 NLCS when the Cubs hadn't been to the World Series in 71 years, and they punched their ticket with Kyle Hendricks on the mound. It's about when the Cubs were trying to complete a 3-1 comeback and win their first World Series in over 108 years. Game 7, the most important game in the franchise's history, they gave the ball to this man, Kyle Hendricks. The Cubs won both of those games, and Kyle Hendricks is a huge reason why. The Cubs are not World Series champions without Kyle Hendricks, and I think he is an under-the-radar, unsung hero of that legendary 2016 World Series championship team. But as we've had emotional send-offs and receptions and reunions with Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, Chris Bryant, John Lester, Kyle Schwarber, Dexter Fowler, to name a few, we haven't had to send off Kyle Hendricks, and we haven't had to welcome him back because he's stuck around. He's been a part of this Cubs culture for over a decade now. And today is our chance to finally send him off and get something we never got the chance to do with Rizzo or Bryant or Javier Baez or any of those, even Joe Maddon at the helm. We never got the chance to send them off in a Cubs uniform to show them how much we appreciate what they've done for our franchise and for our city while they're wearing pinstripes. And today we get a chance to do that with Kyle Hendricks, who got the ball in 2 of the biggest games in Chicago Cubs history, won them both, and who has been an exemplary member of the franchise, of the organization, of the city, and of course of that team that won the 2016 World Series. Now, I'm not saying it's time for Kyle Hendricks to retire. While it might have looked like that early in the season, he definitely recovered and showed that he still has some value on a big league club. But the days of him making $15 million a year and guaranteeing one of your 5 starts might be over. Those might be in the rearview mirror. It's unknown whether or not Jed Hoyer will see Kyle Hendricks and potentially invite him back next season as a non-roster invitee to spring training or give him a chance to make the team, or if he'll be pitching elsewhere. But I think he's shown that he deserves to still be pitching in the big leagues. But the chances are today is going to be his last game as a Cub at Wrigley Field. Contract is set to expire. He will be an unrestricted free agent come the end of the season, which means Cubs fans have a chance to do something they didn't get a chance to do with all those other players, and it's send them off in style at Wrigley Field. And I think today's a really exciting day as the Cubs can do that for Kyle Hendricks, who, like we said, you see that banner hanging up beside me, Chicago Cubs 2016 World Series champions. Kyle Hendricks is a World Series champion, and he's a huge reason why that team is a World Series championship team. Now let's get into yesterday's game. The Cubs beat the Reds 1-0 in the fastest game in the MLB since 2011. It was the fastest Cubs game since 2001, an hour and 48 minutes. The game was over before 4 o'clock, and the game started at 1:20. It was over almost before 3:30. That's how fast this game flew on by. The Cubs got the win, though, 1-0 on a sacrifice fly from Miguel Amaya. And a big reason why they won the game is because Jameson Taillon rolled against the Reds. He pitched 7 innings, only had 89 pitches, so he could have even gone out there for the 8th. But 7 innings, only allowed 4 hits and 2 walks. No runs, struck out 2. Tyson Miller got the hold with a clean 8th inning, and Porter Hodge got the save with a clean 9th as the Cubs draw victorious. That's their 82nd win of the season. They're 82-78, meaning they have clinched over 500 for the season. And it brings Jameson Taillon to 12-8 on the season with a 3.27 ERA and 165 innings pitched. So it makes me ask, how would you grade Jameson Taillon's season? Obviously, injured at the beginning of the year, came in and was inserted into that rotation that desperately needed him to eat some innings with Justin Steele on the injured list. And he delivered. He was really strong at the beginning of the season, garnered a ton of trade interest and rumors as the Cubs potentially were selling at the deadline. They end up hanging on to Taillon. He has a few bad starts end of July, early August, and then settles in nicely for a wonderful September. In his last 4 starts, he pitched to the tune of a sub-1 ERA. And over the course of his last 7 starts, he's got a 2.27 ERA. So a really strong start to the season and a really strong finish for Jameson Taillon, who still has 2 years left on his contract. So as the Cubs talk about potentially adding to the top of their rotation with a guy like Corbin Burns or Roki Sasaki from Japan, or even Max Fried or some of the other pitchers available on the market to pair up with Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele at the top of the rotation, I think it's very fair to assume that Jameson Taillon will slide into that 4 or 5 starter role in your rotation and potentially be one of the strongest at the back end of that rotation in the MLB. I think Taillon had a really strong season for the Cubs, and it's something to build on and hopefully count on in 2025 and potentially 2026. But like we said today, the Cubs take on the Reds at 1:20. It'll be Kyle Hendricks, like we mentioned, on the mound, 4-12 on the year with a 6.28 ERA, trying to win his 98th career game in Cubby Blue against Rhett Lowder, who's 2-2 on the year with a 1.40 ERA. The Cubs head into this ball game 4 games above 500. If they win 1 and lose 1, they'll finish with the exact same record as they did in 2023. But like we said, today is rightfully so all about Kyle Hendricks. So if you guys are going to the game, get in the comments section, let us know what it's going to be like for you to say potentially goodbye to one of the 2016 legends on that team. And if you are going to the game, let us know how that ovation is when Craig Counsell comes and takes the ball from Kyle Hendricks one final time. But guys, thanks so much for joining us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe, get in that comment section, follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and make sure to drop your favorite Kyle Hendricks memory or moment in the comment section. But we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Cubs.